there's a few beautiful bikes here. This is one of the more beautiful bikes here down in Bentonville, the Chumba. Over the years, I've been reading about the Chumba name as a mountain bike brand, really. I remember it back when it got its original George Washington-like roots back in SoCal, out of the Bike Beat bike shop. And that's when I first knew Chumba. It was just a young, starting out brand, but it's gone so far. It's a whole new bike company. And that's what we're here to find out more about Chumba today and find out what they're doing. So let's find out, what do we need to know about Chumba?
Yeah, my name is Vince Colvin. I'm one of the owners of Chumba, and it's my day job, so it's our passion project in our careers. But yeah, we've been with Chumba now for 10 years. 5 years ago, we took over ownership of it and changed a lot of the creative direction of it just to open up a lot more customization options with the bikes.
Right.
And we're predominantly known for mountain bikes, single speeds, like really durable products that people trust for bike packing. We've got a long-standing ambassador team that has done like extensive ultra racing on the bikes. Yeah. So it's kind of like our core. And then, about 4 years ago, we started getting into more gravel as another option. And then new for the show here, we are kind of releasing our new all-road bike, which quite a few of our current Chumba owners and customers have been asking for, and just coming to the site looking for it and where's your all-road bike? And
yeah,
so we enjoy that kind of riding as well. So we wanted to offer something for those folks, and we brought it to the show.
So Vince, where you were telling me you're in New Mexico now, or no?
Austin, Texas.
Texas, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mexico is awesome. I love New Mexico.
So, I mean, in Austin, it's its own kind of bike culture going on down there.
Oh, yeah.
What is sort of like, in terms of when you're thinking about Chumba, what you're trying to represent to the outside world, like, how would you describe that to people?
Yeah, I mean, as a company, like, we build really simple frames. Like, the complexity is really in the mechanics of the system that make the bike effective as all the componentry.
Yeah.
But frames, we feel they need to be highly functional, highly compatible, and because of that, our goal is to make bikes that will last a long time. People won't want to just buy the next one from us to replace it. We want people to connect with their bikes, create a story with them, and keep them over a long time.
Nice.
And that's part of why we brought in all those different customization options. So we can do customized geometries on any of the models. we've had currently 6 models. This new one now brings us to 7 and 8 because every bike we do, we offer in titanium and in steel.
Okay, next one, great.
And everything we make is fabricated in the U.S. We make the majority of all of our frames in Austin, Texas.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
Mm-hmm. In-house.
Nice.
All of our tubing is entirely all mitered in-house. Austin, our other staff member here, he's our lead production crew member, and he does all of our mitering. So I mean, our big thing we're kind of known for is really durability and high compatibility, and becoming more known for some of the aesthetics as well.
Yeah.
So this bike has some fun things. We're doing all the anodizing work here in-house. That's one of my roles at the company.
Oh, no kidding, God! It's just done so nicely, and it's so soft. But yet, when you get here and look, you see top tube, seat stays, and just the way that logo jumps out. It's subtle, but it's still got really nice impact.
This is probably one of the louder bikes we've done. Like, we're really pretty understated usually.
Yeah.
And so, like, to add the color on the top tube and seat post and bigger graphics on the seat tube is rare for us.
Uh-huh.
So, and part of that kind of pulls into like the concept of like, you want to keep your bike for a long time. If you make it too wild and too crazy with the colorways, sometimes you can get kind of tired of it. So we'll do that for folks who want it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people come to us for just like a really timeless kind of bike. They won't become outdated with the way it looks.
Right. Earlier I was making a joke because I've, talking about, you guys are all these handmade bike builders, and I was telling someone how I was at a bike, probably the NAB show one time, and talking to, I can't remember who, it was like, some storied bike builder, and I'm like, hey, so by the way, like, what advice would you give to some young up and coming kid who has stars in his eyes of being a bike builder? What advice would you give him? And he says, like, don't do it. It's like, well, thanks a lot. It's a real building block.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So anyways, so I'll just ask you the question in terms of, in a general, if you're talking to a kid in a supermarket and he,
Sure.
asks you what you do and, what words of inspiration, because again, it's not antiquated, but it's this historical artwork, right?
Oh,
and,
sure.
And it's just, I don't know, again, I get swept away with it, as I always say, because I do. I'm just looking at this bike. It's just so beautiful. What do you tell a kid, you're trying to explain him what you do, but more importantly, to inspire him to become like you and do his own bike building? Why should anyone do that?
Sure. Yeah, we get asked from time to time, just for advice or tips and things like that. I think the biggest thing that I could hand off is just not to do what you know, but to do what you're interested in. Focus on building bikes that you want to ride.
Yeah.
And then your passion will drive the creative responses for that design.
Yeah.
A lot further than just trying to build a bike to meet a metric of a certain category or something that's not relevant to you. And, these giant bike companies who are out there who have, a bike for every single category, they have staff members and teams dedicated to each of those little zones to specialize in it and try to understand the demographics that want those bikes or how their bike could stand out within those realms. But the trick is to kind of find things you're passionate about and focus on that. The other thing too is just maybe not to rush it. Do something that you're proud of. Work to a point where you feel like it's ready to show, and to not be afraid to reach out to other people. Probably one of my faults with building the company over the last 10 years has been just not connecting to other frame builders as much.
Oh.
And in the last 5 years where we became the owners, we kind of changed that. We started doing these shows, going to these events, and it's really helpful because now I have a community of peers. We can talk about the trends that are happening in the business of the cycling industry, how to make our companies basically make sure they're going to be around in 10 years
to survive.
And so there's all this focus on making this cool thing, which is great. But if you really want to make it sustainable as a business that you can have income from, you have to be really into what you're doing, connect to other people who are really into what you're doing, and find ways to creatively promote that. Create a network around you that's supportive of that.
Yeah. Wow. As long as you've been in the bike industry and even as an industry for yourself, but also just a bike fan, is there any particular realm of componentry or anything in terms of the product and how much the bikes have changed? That you sit back now and man, I never saw that one coming.
Well, yeah. I kind of fall in between a huge fan of wireless systems, but also a huge fan of friction shifters.
Oh, there you go.
For me,
that's quite the gap.
For me, there's a place for all those things.
Yeah.
I like building. I'd be more than happy to build a bike like this for someone, or a bike with a basket on the front and
nice.
A friction friction shifter setup. We do loads of single speeds.
Oh, okay.
And as a rider myself, that's kind of one of my passions and always has been. It's where I feel the most joy with my riding and just the simplicity of that, being able to get on the bike and go.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of time to ride where, if I'm getting out riding, I don't want to spend a lot of time working on my bike. So less to maintain is great. So I never thought, early on, when we first started doing this, I remember when we was working in shops, internal routing came out and we were like, why would anybody want that? You've got to it's going to take so much time to work on, but being an end user and being a mechanic are two different things.
Exactly, yeah.
And so as a mechanic, it was a nightmare as companies were struggling to figure out how to make an internally routed bike, not, totally a complete other time suck to work on. And now we've got bikes that, us launching this bike like this is kind of interesting because the expectation is probably that all these things should be inside the head tube.
Yeah, how dare you?
And how dare us, sacrilege. And we did do internal routing on the down tube, but I think that our customer base, this is what they want.
Yeah.
I've had 0 people ask me to put their cables in the harder to reach places.
Yeah, through the stem.
So while it's interesting to see like the design and aesthetics like increase in that realm, and you're seeing a lot of like creative solutions for creating that, especially in metal bikes. Some aesthetically very pleasing, some aesthetically hideous, and you know, it's one of those things that if someone asks for, we'll do it. But I wouldn't say that will fall into a big passion for us. I'd much more focus on a bike that's will make the end user keep themselves on the bike as fast as possible. Like, oh, I'm going to change my ride today. I want to flip my stem and raise it up 20 millimeters. Like, well, you can do that because your cables aren't inside of the stem right now and going into your head tube. Like, because how we ride our bikes changes over the years, changes day to day. Especially if you're making bikes for mountain biking or gravel or all these conditions where the courses are varied.
I mean, I get the aesthetic cables, and thank you, Gary Klein, as just one pioneer of internal cable routing back in the late 80s. But again, there's a side to it that I think a lot of people don't understand. You look at the bike, it's beautiful, but it's like working on the bike. I mean, like when we get a test bike, just to raise a stem, can't do it. Flip this, anything. It's just like pain in the ass. And so I started wondering, it's like, 5 years from now, will it be like internal cable routing? Because it's an aesthetic thing more. You can say arrow all you want. Who cares, right?
Yeah, totally.
So to me, it's like, will this ever be like, remember when under the chainstay brakes were like, oh, you got to have under the chain. Even for road bikes, they started putting them down there. And then finally the industry kind of caught themselves and they're like, you know what? That was really kind of silly. So I'm thinking like, in 5 years from now, would cables, come back to being exposed because maybe there's going to be like this, like, tide of, consumer complaints saying, what a pain in the ass. It's just like, our mechanics.
We do both, and it's probably split 50-50 between who wants internal and who wants external. So our external ones, we've got them on the other show bikes, some of them, but they just go on the bottom. So they're really easy to service, but yeah, this is a really clean look. It's fun to have both options for folks, for sure.
So new bike in the quiver, do you have a sort of roundabout retail price for what this would cost somebody?
Yeah, so the frame itself on this titanium bike would be $34.95.
34?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so $3,495 for the frame, tie, handmade to order, and then our steel version will be $1,850 for the bike, so $1,840 or $50.
$3,500 for that frame. That's kids. That's a good deal. Wow.
Well, it won't have the anodized finish on it.
No, granted.
That's extra.
Yeah, sure. There's upcharges, but I mean, for an American-made, handmade titanium frame for $3,500, that's a solid price.
Our tubing is U.S. sourced or sourced from Canada, so we got most of our stuff from Taizhou, which are most of the builders are using stateside tubing. That's where they're getting it from. Head tubes, bottom brackets, and dropouts are all made through Paragon Machine Works out of California. So we're, it's all the highest level materials that you can get your hands on. And then some of our other bikes feature like 3D printed components that we make in the US as well. So like there's a huge surge in 3D printing right now in tie and steel, and various companies doing US based sourced options for that or overseas sourced options. All of our materials for the 3D printing side is all US sourced as well.
Just a little bit of digression. I just got to tip the hat because he brought it up first. But again, there's a guy named Mark Norstad, Paragon Machine Works in Marin, California, or maybe Marin, but in the Bay Area up there in San Francisco, who's responsible for this dropout. And a lot of these bikes all use Paragon dropouts, bottom brackets, like you said. But it's just a part of the bike that no one really thinks about. But when you see a Paragon drop, especially, I mean, and Norstad's been doing it for years. But I mean, off the charts. It's just so beautiful and thought out, and you can just look at a dropout forever, and it's versus some stamp piece of steel or just.
Well, and they're a fantastic company to work with too. Like we've got a really great relationship with Mark, Donna, and Coco over there, and like they'll do custom variations on the parts, make the flanges wider for certain things if we need to fit different tubing, and they're a great resource for him.
Solid pioneer company that people, again, he doesn't make bikes. He just makes all the parts that make these beautiful bikes possible.
So we've used that dropout now for 10 years on the bikes.
No kidding. Wow.
All of our bikes have sliding dropouts.
Oh,
this all-road
interesting.
bike.
Nice.
It is pretty unique to see an all-road bike with a sliding dropout. Part of that's so we offer adjustable wheelbase. This bike will do this particular fork only goes to a 38 tire, but the frame itself will go to like a 40.
Okay.
So even some light gravel would work really well. So that sliding dropout gives us more clearance for that. We are working on a 3D printed dropout too. That'll be a fixed dropout for this bike to kind of give like a more road aesthetic.
Yeah.
That'll probably come out sometime next year, maybe sooner.
Yep.
But yeah, Paragon's a pleasure to work with. For example, when the new SRAM transmission came out, we got in conversation with Mark and planned it out with him. He sent us like 3D printed resin prototypes. We built things up on the mountain bike side, and they allowed us to collaborate with them in a way that made it so all of our bikes that we've always made are compatible with that system.
Wow, great.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So for the sake of it, if someone wants to find out more about a Chumba bike, all-road bike, mountain bike, how do they find you?
Yeah, so chumbausa.com. Just Google search Chumba Bikes, will pop right up, no problem there. We're most active on Instagram for social media, so at ChumbaUSA. And email us, call us. We're really friendly and easy
Happy
to work
to
with.
answer.
And then just a little Easter egg for you. This is a prototype Industry 9 road stem
Oh, no
that's
kidding,
yet
huh?
to be released. So
Oh,
we've
nice.
got one of the first ones here.
Oh, cheers.
So
Good
just,
for you. Good for them. Good for you.
Sneak in that real quick.
Well, Vince, thanks for bringing the bike down, bringing Chumba to Bentonville.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. Thanks
Yeah,
very much.
likewise. Thank
Good
you
day.
for your time.
Cheers.